power, invisible, and just see it everywhere and every day. One power, indescribable, and just speak of it with every word you say. Mysterious until you know the truth. As simple as the love inside of you. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, angels' wings or heaven's door. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? It's the power of the love in you and me. One power, one power.
Good morning. Such is the nature of life that all it asks and all it wants is the opportunity to appear. You are that opportunity, and so am I, and so it is. Welcome, everyone, to CSL Midtown, coming to you this morning from Atlanta, Georgia. We are so glad that you have joined us today. We welcome everyone, no matter who you are or where you are in your life. We welcome all those who are listening online, either live right now or on our recording later. Our center is a beautiful, diverse community of individuals, and that we demonstrate the presence of life that flows through us for each one of us. So we welcome you, whoever you are, and whatever path brought you here today. Know that you're in the right place at the right time. And we know that you are an individual expression of the divine life in which we all live. You're welcome to participate here today and to become part of this community. We hope that those of you who are watching our broadcast on a social media platform, Facebook or YouTube, would like and share this with your friends. All right, for a better understanding of who we are and what we teach, listen now to our Declaration of Principles as written by our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes.
A few of the Declaration of Principles we live by.
I believe in one God, one absolute power, and first cause to all things.
I believe that this power is perfect love, and it creates out of a desire to express love.
I believe all thought is creative, and how I choose to think creates my personal experience.
I believe in the unity of all life, and the immortality of the individual soul forever unfolding.
I believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of God to all.
And so it is.
So grateful. Hey. All right, the full declaration, which is a lot longer, but it's the same ideas, is available on our website, cslmidtown.org. My name is Judy Aehle, and I'm one of the practitioners here at CSL Midtown, and I am also the moderator for today's service. So today we are continuing our monthly theme of Power to the People. And this week's theme is Power Together. The affirmation for this week is together we empower each other for the greater good. This is about individuals coming together with a shared purpose. When I observe what is happening in our region of the United States, North Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, with the recent hurricanes, we can see people coming together with a shared purpose. There is so much power in what I have seen. The communities that I'm the most familiar with are Asheville and Black Mountain, North Carolina, and it has been amazing to watch the communities come together for the common good. The common good of heroic rescuing of trapped people, of clearing roads, of providing the basic necessities of food, water, shelter, and so many other things that are happening. It seems from my observation that as soon as a need is expressed, people have been there to meet that need. This has been so moving to me. People giving of themselves, people making financial donations, and much more. There is a lot of power in these communities that have come together in these really difficult times. It is amazing to watch, but really, is it so amazing? What is at the core of human nature? Some might say greed or self-centeredness. I would say that in this situation, the core of human nature on display is love, caring, compassion, energy, and even a zest for life. This is truly a time that we can observe community coming together for a common purpose. I recently read a quote that said, "The greatest illusion of modern society is that freedom is purely individualistic, when in reality, our freedom is deeply interconnected with the well-being of everyone." This topic also brought to mind the idea of race consciousness or collective consciousness. We can, as a community, move together to have an intention to affect in a positive way the collective consciousness in which we all live. What is our intention for the collective consciousness? Do we want to believe in the world that has a possibility of world peace, a possibility of a world of love and caring and giving and forgiving? Do we want to believe that we can live in a world that works for everyone? We are all connected. We certainly learned this during the COVID pandemic. There is an interconnectedness in all of us, and the well-being of every person affects us all. When Ernest Holmes said, "All things are possible," it means that the power which created the planets, is now operating in your affairs and in mine and through everything we do. And when we come together with intention, that power is magnified many, many times. Okay, those are my thoughts on this. So now, please join me. I'm going to switch to the spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer part of our service. And this affirmative prayer will be followed by music for reflection. So just take a few, just center yourself wherever you are. Take a couple of nice, slow, deep breaths and allow yourself to become fully present right here in this moment of creation. Because as we think about whatever happened in the past or worrying about what's going to happen in the future, those are not the places of power. Our place of power is this present moment. And as we center ourselves and allow ourselves to be fully present right here and right now, please accept this treatment, this prayer for yourself, as I do it in the first person for myself. I recognize and know that there is this one spiritual presence, this one power, this one loving goodness everywhere in my body, in my exterior appearing world and affairs, in the affairs of this country, in the affairs of people in my community, in my state, in my country, in my world, that this power is everywhere present. And it's a power for good. It's a loving, creative power that only desires to express itself through me and through each one of us. I know my oneness with this power. I know that I'm never separated from it. It moves through me as vibrant health, as fabulous new ideas, of new ways of looking at situations and circumstances in my life and in the world, of new ways of doing things, of approaching what may appear to be a problem. That this divine intelligence, this one mind, that I can tap into it to touch and know all that I need to know. And today I affirm that as I come together with people in my community, in my world, in my life, that there is power in this. There is power in numbers. There's power in intention. And my intention is to create a world that is a world that does work for everyone, a world that is filled with love and peace and joy and goodness for all that I see. And I believe that this is possible. I affirm and know that Spirit supports this, that Spirit is cheering me on, cheering all of us on as we take steps, as we do things in our life to effect change. We are divinely guided and led in this work, and we are so grateful for that. I turn away from any idea of frustration, worry, fear, lack, limitation. I turn away from all those, and instead I know and embody this power, this presence that expresses in my life, in all of our lives, as good. And I recognize this good wherever I go. So I'm so grateful for being here today. I know that this is a fabulous service and that those who are listening benefit and grow from being here. So I'm just so grateful knowing that. I release this treatment. I release this prayer now, knowing that it is so, and so it is.
Who can make a difference? Let's stand together.
All right. This is a great song. Awesome. Well, this morning I am so excited and pleased to introduce our speaker. She's no stranger to CSL Midtown. We welcome Reverend Cynthia Paulsen back. She is an interfaith and religious science minister and a divine science spiritual practitioner. She is author of the fabulous book, Undoing the Knots, Reclaiming Our Good. And she's currently working on her Doctor of Divinity with Emerson Institute. She's writing a new book and she's living her best life in Brookings, Oregon. Welcome back, Reverend Cynthia. So
Hello,
glad to see
Judy.
you.
Thank you so much.
Hi.
Hey, good morning, CSL Midtown. I'm so happy to be back with you. So, hey, what an interesting theme you've got going this month. Power to the people. Don't you just see the fist in the air when you hear that? It makes me think of democracy and elections and the people using their power at the voting booth, which, in case you missed last week's service, Maya did a fantastic job talking about the election and how powerful we are. So let's get down to basics this morning. In New Thought language, what is power? One definition of power is the energy by which everything lives. That's how Ernest Holmes defined power in The Science of Mind, and I loved that. The energy by which everything lives. So simple. And of course, that's one part of it. Power is also, he goes on to say, the creative power that human beings can access and use every time we think. He has that famous quote, there's a power for good in the universe that you can use. We set the law in motion with our thought. That makes us very powerful. So today, we narrow our focus even more to how powerful we are together. When we come together as a collective and work together and acknowledge our unity and our oneness and all the good things. But before we really dive into that, I want to talk about what it's like to feel powerless first. I think that's important. We have to differentiate between feeling powerful, which with power comes a certain level of freedom, and feeling powerless, which would indicate a lack of freedom. There are a lot of groups and categories of people in this country and in the world who feel powerless right now in 2024. And there are a lot of other groups in this country who don't have a lot of experience feeling powerless. We're probably all somewhere on that spectrum, right? So let's go back and think about a time recently, just a few years ago, where almost everyone on the planet felt powerless, no matter what category we were in. You guys remember the global pandemic that we had? Now, I know COVID's still out there making people plenty miserable, but if you think back to when it first started, in the spring of 2020 here in the US, we all watched the cases begin to rise, first in China and in other Eastern countries, into Europe. And of course, by mid-March, US cases were beginning to increase. There was a lot of panic and fear. I mean, sometimes my husband and I look at each other and just say, did that really happen? Like, it just seems like a bad dream. I have a friend who calls the pandemic the dark days, and we kind of laugh about it now, but those were some pretty dark days. As the virus spread and officials began to realize like the severity and the seriousness of it, we started to see entire nations shutting down. Airports closing and governments forcing people to stay home to stop the spread of the virus. Remember the first time you heard the words mandatory lockdown? Ugh, doesn't that just make you twitch right now? Like, people get really squirrely with that term. You're not going to tell me I'm going to have to stay home again. The very phrase itself, mandatory lockdown, makes people feel powerless. I think some of us felt truly powerless maybe for the first time in our lives during those months. We were forced to do something, or in this case, forced to not do something. Kids were told not to go to school. I was in Georgia with many of you, and all of us at CSL Midtown were told we could not go to church. We could not open up the center and meet and gather. Some of us were told not to go to work. Some of us were told we had to close our businesses to the public. I mean, the fear that this created, not just about the virus, which was scary enough, but to tell people they can't work and can't provide for their family. That's economic fear, financial fear. It took away people's autonomy and their sense of power over their own lives. Now, we have to acknowledge that for other people during this time, they experienced the opposite. They were told, oh, you work in a field where you have to go to work. They were forced to. They had what was called an essential job, and they had to go out in the world and put themselves at risk. Healthcare workers, emergency services, first responders. But remember also, it was like the grocery store workers were making $10 an hour had to do that too. They were essential. They had no choice. So many people felt powerless. And then something interesting happened. I don't know if you remember this, but about a month into the pandemic, it was April 16th, 2020 to be exact, because I looked it up. Disney decided that they could make a difference and help lift everyone's spirits and make us feel better by broadcasting a family sing-along show on television. Now, I wish I could get a show of hands to see how many of you watched it, because a lot of us did, especially those of us who were stuck at home with nothing else to do. It was actually seen by 10.3 million people, and it was corny and adorable, and it was really full of very talented performances, and it was very moving. At one point, at the end of the program, I found myself tearing up, which is embarrassing to admit, but I did. It was during what was arguably the corniest performance of the evening, the catchy finale song from the Disney movie High School Musical, We're All in This Together. I will not be singing it for you, but here are just a few snippets of the lyrics that we, 10.3 million people, were hearing. Together, together, we're there for each other every time. Together, together, come on, let's do this right. All our dreams have no limitations. That's what it's all about. Everyone is special in their own way. We make each other strong. We're all in this together, and it shows when we stand hand in hand, make our dreams come true. We're all here and speaking out with one voice, together, together, together. Now, I know it's extra corny with my dramatic poetry reading voice, but that is some new thought talk there in that song. That message, that kind of language that we are unlimited, that we are one voice when we stand together, we support each other, that we make each other strong. That is very moving and empowering. It helps us realize that in that moment, we were all in the same situation. We would get through it together as one humanity. This was an acknowledgement of not only our unity, but of our collective power. Remember, that was still early on in the pandemic. So at that point, we really had a shared purpose and a common goal to survive that unprecedented time in history and stop the spread of that deadly virus. Now, that was a global example of us realizing our collective power. Another example that was more centered just on the United States was the days following September 11th. Everyone seemed to acknowledge our unity then. We all went from experiencing this, tremendous shock and pain and loss and just feeling utterly powerless in that tragedy to recognizing our unity as Americans and feeling empowered by that, feeling, a shared sense of anguish. We came together to feel strong again. Do you remember there were so many gatherings everywhere after September 11th happened? They were in churches and spiritual centers and, town halls and public parks all over the country. Americans stood together. It wasn't about race or culture. It wasn't about political party or religion. It didn't matter who you loved. It wasn't about how much money you had or what you did for a living. It was just about coming together as one. Now, I remember that time, and I remember feeling like I could walk up to a stranger and hug them, and they would just hug me back compassionately. Now, I don't know if you've looked around the country lately, like today, but that feeling after 9/11 did not last. I do not feel like that today, like I could walk up to a stranger and hug them. And I don't think most of you feel like that either. There's a meme that pops up on social media, especially around the anniversary of September 11th, and it says, "Live every day like it's September 12th, 2001." Because on that day, we were all very aware of how powerful we are when we come together. We don't live in our unity all the time. We don't feel empowered by our unity all the time. What I see happen from a spiritual perspective over and over again is we experience something painful and difficult. It sucks. That's not a nice way to say that, but it doesn't feel good. So we come together and we feel empowered and we're reminded of our truth. We know our truth. Time goes on and our sense of united empowerment subsides. And then people tend to revert right back to our separateness, right back to believing we're separate. Why do we do that? Why do we forget that we are really one, that our power is activated and amplified when we come together? Why do we need the painful, deadly, scary, violent, tragic reminders to get us to realize how powerful we are together? It's a rhetorical question because I don't have an answer other than we're human. I do know, however, that this idea of how powerful we are when we come together is biblical. It is a scriptural thing that the master teacher Jesus taught in Matthew 18:20, which, by the way, I'm notorious for misquoting the Bible. And that is the one scripture that I think I misquote every single time. So the actual correct quote is Jesus says, "Where two or more are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them." Okay. What I always say is where two or more are gathered, that's where the magic happens. I like mine better, but you can't argue with Jesus. So what was he saying? What is this magic? What is in the midst of us when we gather with intention, with a shared purpose, with compassion? He is Christ, which we know is not his last name. He doesn't really mean him. Jesus is saying when two or more are gathered in his name, in the Christ name, it means in that highest level of consciousness, the highest level of understanding that accesses God, spirit, universe, source, the one presence, one life, one mind, one power. That's what's there. That's what's turned on. That's what's activated. So when we do this, what is happening? I believe wholeheartedly that we are changing the world for good when we come together with a shared purpose in that high level of consciousness. There's a famous quote from Margaret Mead that I know you've all heard that says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world." In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. That's a terrific, powerful quote. Now, in case you didn't realize this, we are a small group of thoughtful, committed, like-minded individuals. So this is speaking to all of us. And I mean this spiritual community, CSL Midtown proper and beyond. Everybody tuning in right now or watching later on, by coming together on a regular basis. I mean, you guys are here every week, right? By thinking about and discussing these big spiritual ideas, we influence the world in a positive way. We take what we learn here, what we are inspired by, and we take it out in the world. This is part of what the Centers for Spiritual Living organization calls sacred activism. There's an entire section of their website dedicated to sacred activism, and they define it as the intersection where consciousness becomes action, where prayer becomes movement, and where spiritual principle becomes practice. So it includes things like, Earth Day activities, Juneteenth Day resources, diversity, equity, and inclusion work, the CSL World Ministry of Prayer, CSL Global Outreach, and the CSL Global Heart of Peace Initiative. These are all actual organizations, committees, and groups within the larger organization of CSL, where people like you and me can actively come together to change the world in a positive way. Now, the last line of the definition says that sacred activism is the activity of bringing the CSL global vision into reality. Well, what is the CSL global vision, you may ask? Well, you can go to csl.org, you go to the Who We Are tab, and then you can click on the Our Global Vision link, okay, and read it. It's too long for me to get into the whole thing, but there are a couple lines that I wanted to cherry pick and point out because of the language that is used. The first line of the whole thing, this is the first one I want to talk about, is we envision all people, all beings, and all life as expressions of God. That is a lot of the word all. We're all in this together. There is no us and them. It's just all expressions of God. The second line I want to talk about says, we see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with their highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individually and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. That sounds like what Jesus was saying. When two or more are gathered in that high state of consciousness, that's where our power is. That's where the magic happens. And the last, probably most familiar line of the CSL Global Vision says, we envision a world that works for everyone, for all of creation. We're all in this together. Now, before we can do any of this work together, we have to believe that we can. Judy touched on that this morning. What do we believe? Before we can do any of this work together, we have to believe that we can. Now, I think there is value in acknowledging that we aren't just a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals, as Margaret Mead would say. I think we are a small group of thoughtful, committed believers. Now, believers is kind of a weird word depending on what your spiritual background is. I know it's something I've heard before in evangelical Christian churches. They sometimes call themselves believers, and that's fine. There are all kinds of believers. Any spiritual thinker who believes in the one power of God and believes that we can access it collectively is a believer. Now, why is this important? because the world is experiencing more and more violent, chaotic, divisive, life-changing events. It did before, just like those reminders I talked about in the beginning, the pandemic, September 11th, those kinds of things. Today, we're dealing with, Israeli-Palestinian war, an extremely contentious election here in America, again. Widespread gun violence, mass shootings, devastating hurricanes, flooding, wildfires. I don't mean to be dramatic, but it feels to me like some of these events have the potential to change the trajectory of humanity, of life on Earth. And we could get bogged down by a thought like that. That's kind of a fearful thought. It is. It's a fearful thought. And we know that's not our truth. That's not our capital T truth of who and what we are. If a person is too focused on the human conditions and all these negative events and situations, they might get distracted and miss the real truth, that we as a collective are very powerful together and we can change the world. That's why I think we as believers who understand this are so important. There's actually a chapter in my book about this topic, which sounds like a shameless plug. But in this particular essay in the book, it's about how no matter what difficult world events we may experience, we are still powerful because of who we are collectively. I wrote in that essay, those of us with even the slightest bit of spiritual awareness, from the ordained minister to the seat filler filled with doubt in the pew on Sunday morning, and maybe most especially those of us who consider ourselves to be spiritual but not quite religious, the spectrum of awareness is wide. And wherever we fall on it, we are important and powerful. Now, I'm not saying that we are better than or more important than anyone else. We are not any more special than anyone else, but we are special. We understand the unity of all life. We know and trust in the divine. We know and trust in our own divinity, and we see that divinity in others. All the time? Maybe not, but we're trying. We hold space for the devastated. We choose to be the presence of love and light in the world. We practice and teach forgiveness, and we hold fast to our spiritual principles. We do the study and the practice and the work to be high consciousness people. There is always the other side of whatever human devastation we're experiencing. There always is. Wars end. Elections happen. Storm recovery takes place. On the other side, we together might be the reason that life continues in a new way, in a unified way. I know that Judy just did a beautiful treatment, but I really feel moved to piggyback onto it. Because this is an opportunity. We are all together right here, right now, in this moment. So if you would join with me in knowing the truth that the one power of God is the only power that there is, and it is expressed in all life. A divine power for good is at the center of all people, always. I live and move and have my being in this power. I know that's true for me, and I know it's true for everyone hearing this. In this moment, I choose to recognize the beautiful power of community. I choose to see beyond human made-up labels and divisions to the deep sense of belonging that comes from just being a child of the divine. I choose in this moment to be led by Spirit, to work in ways that co-create with my fellow brothers and sisters. I know when we do this together, we can expect a reality that is harmonious and empowering collective experience. This is what I say yes to. This is what we affirm together. I give great thanks that this opportunity is before us today, in this moment, and in the next moment, and in every moment that we choose to live in this state of conscious awareness. I am so grateful that this is the way life works and that we are empowered by this together. I can let this prayer go fully anticipating its fulfillment. And so it is. Amen. Thank you so much for having me, CSL Midtown.
Oh, thank you, Reverend Cynthia Paulsen, for that wonderful, powerful talk. It really meant a lot to me. Thank you. All right. Now we come to the time in our service where we give back as we are able to this spiritual community. If this is where you get your spiritual nourishment, please consider supporting us in a way that feels right for you. Somebody once said to me, well, how much should you give? And the old saying, give till it hurts. Nah, give till it feels really good. So please join me in our affirmation for prosperity. Here it is, hopefully up on the screen. There it is. And there's the QR code in our website if you want to give there. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in the divine flow. And all that I share with life returns to me, multiplied abundantly. And so it is. All right. It's a great service today. Thank you for joining us. And remember that if you liked what you heard, share the link for this with your friends on social media. I have a few announcements. Every Sunday at 10 a.m., we have our adult study group that meets on the Zoom link at cslmidtown.org. Our group is currently studying the Science of Mind textbook, but please feel free to join us on any Sunday for discussion and just a really thought-provoking time. We are pleased to be able to continue providing our community with these excellent speakers, just like we had today, and people from all over this country. We really have enjoyed hearing just a variety of messages, and we look forward to hearing more of these high quality and inspiring speakers. We hope that you will spread the news about our great Sunday speakers to your family and friends. The first Sunday of each month, we meet in person, followed by a potluck lunch, and we meet at the Garden Hills Community Center, and the address for that is on our website also. Our speaker next Sunday will be Nicholas Gunn. He will continue with our monthly theme of Power to the People. And I mentioned this last week because I think I was doing this last week too. If you're a person who's wondering when or if we will ever have a senior minister for CSL Midtown, know that at the present moment, we require greater financial well-being from our members and from the universe to allow that to happen. So we're not there yet, but we are moving toward that goal. And just know that there are a lot of steps to get there, but we are in that process. That's the end of the announcements, but please join us at our Zoom link after the service. We have a discussion after the service on the Zoom link at cslmidtown.org with our speaker, Reverend Cynthia Paulsen. So please join us and join me in the affirmation of life as we close our service. I leave this place now knowing something better than I knew before. I go forth into the world with a heart full of love and a mind full of good sense. I look at the world in a greater way, knowing that I have within me everything I need to create the life I desire. I give thanks for this understanding, and I'm grateful for the spirit of life that lives through me, and so it is. Thanks, everybody. Hope to see you after the service at the Zoom link.
Hey, I'm so grateful.
There is a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.